بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
This is a presentation I put together called Signs of Islam in Previous Scriptures. I promise you that you will find this presentation, inshallah, very interesting. Now, I was not born or raised in the faith of Islam, and because I joined the faith from the religion of Christianity, it's very interesting to me when I read passages in the Quran that refer to things that I knew about as a Christian, especially the stories of the prophets. But occasionally I find an interesting ayah in the Quran and I want to know, what is this talking about? So just like any good Islamic lecture, we start off with the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something very fascinating. بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ يَعْرِفُونَهُ كَمَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَإِنَّ فَرِيقًا مِّنْهُمْ لَيَكْتُمُونَ الْحَقَّ وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter number 2, Surah number 2, ayah 146. He says something very interesting. He says, the people of the book know this as they know their own sons, but some of them conceal the truth which they themselves know. Now, the word translated here as this, right here, is this pronoun at the end of ya'rifun. Ya'rifunahu. Now, if you go to the tafsir on this, you'll find a few different explanations. This who here, what is it referring to? It's just the pronoun it. Well, most people will say it's referring to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. But what my thesis for tonight is that this is referring to more than just the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's referring to almost everything that we do. In fact, we're just going to cover about 4 or 5 main things from our religion that these people, the learned people from the scriptures before us, should see as obvious signs that they should be doing the same thing we are. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is the Hebrew alphabet. You see, one of the big issues that as a Muslim we all encounter is that our scripture is in Arabic. And if you don't learn the Arabic language, you are always going to be handicapped as a Muslim. You're not going to have real access to the original scripture. But as long as you learn Arabic, you can read the Quran as it came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The previous scriptures did not come in Arabic to my knowledge. Okay? If we look at what is called the Torah today, it's in the Hebrew language. The Injil, what the Christians call the Injil today, is in Koine Greek. So we're not going to learn Greek tonight, but we are going to learn a little bit of Hebrew. Now, who in here knows the Arabic alphabet by heart? Raise your hand, high and proud. I know the Arabic alphabet by heart. Raise it up. Okay? So there's a good amount of you. You are at an advantage tonight. Who does not know the Arabic alphabet by heart? Raise your hand. Okay? Few of you. So you are at a little bit of a disadvantage tonight. Okay? The reason I say that is because the Hebrew alphabet, which we're going to point out right here is this row, okay, is almost exactly the same as Arabic. Almost exactly the same. There's only 2 letters that are different. Okay? Anyone want to take a guess which 2 letters? Out of the entire Arabic alphabet, what are the 2 letters they don't have in Hebrew? Dad and what else? Va. Okay, so Dad and Va. These are the 2 letters that you will not find in Hebrew. What are 2 sounds from Hebrew that we don't have in Arabic? So if you don't know Hebrew, you won't know the answer to this, but it's the P sound, pay, and the V sound, vav. Okay? Other than that, I mean, look at the similarities here. Okay, so this is the first letter in the Arabic alphabet. You say it for me. Aleph. Guess what it is in Hebrew? Aleph. But even more similarities. What's this? Ba. What is this? Bet. What is this? Jim. Let's ask ourselves a question. Where did Bani Israel spend a few hundred years before they entered Al-Ard al-Muqaddis? They spent a few hundred years where? Egypt, Misr. How do you pronounce Jim in Egypt? Gim, right? Okay, so it's Yomul Gumu'ah, right? So this is actually pronounced in Hebrew, Gemel, Gemel. If you're a Yemeni Jew, you would say this as Jemel, which sounds like what? Camel, right? Okay, so this is kind of an interesting thing. I want you to be aware of this. Pay attention to this letter. I'm only going to ask you to memorize about 4 Hebrew letters tonight. That's it, okay? If you want to open up your phone, memorize the letter Gimel. It's going to be important later, okay? Now, I want to draw your attention to the bottom row. What does this sound? Say it. Ha. When I'm teaching young kids how to say the Arabic alphabet, I say, if you want to learn this letter, you have to run around the masjid 4 times. Okay? That's how you say ha. It's a breathy sound. It's different than ha, which comes from your stomach. Okay? Now, whenever the European Jews decided to enter the Holy Land today, Philistine, Palestine, European Jews have a pronunciation of their alphabet, Yemeni Jews have a pronunciation of their alphabet, and the Sephardic Jews from Spain have a pronunciation of their alphabet. It's very different, kind of like how people from Morocco pronounce the Arabic alphabet, and Egypt and Sham and the rest of the places. So they chose the European Jewish pronunciation of the alphabet, which pronounces this sound not as ha like it's supposed to, but as kha. Okay? Have you ever heard an Israeli say the name of our prophet? What do they say? Muhammad, right? They say Muhammad. They are actually mispronouncing their own alphabet. If you go to a learned rabbi and you ask him, how do you say this letter? He's going to say het, het, okay? He's going to make that breathy sound. But a modern day Israeli citizen is going to say kh. If you listen to them talk, you're going to hear in everything they say, because there's actually already a letter in Hebrew that's kha. So they're actually saying 2 kha sounds. So remember this letter. It's going to become important, okay? I'm not going to bore you with the alphabet all night. I promise, inshallah. Okay, the only other letters I want to draw your attention to, okay, are, I'm sorry, they're on the last slide, is the letter dal, which they have dalit, okay? And then finally, the letter mim. Where is mim? Here it is. Okay, so this is mim, which is meme. Other than that, you can see they have a ta, they have a sad, they have an ayn, they have all that stuff, okay? But there's 4 letters: mim, het, dalit, and gimel. Mim, het, dalit, and gimel. Memorize these 4. All right. The original name of God that was given by Ibrahim alayhi salam, according to modern secular scholars, is Aleph Lam, El, El. Okay, this is what they say that Ibrahim alayhi salam most likely called Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? The reason I say that is because we are encountering something today that we have not previously encountered, and this is something that some people today call Islamophobia. I don't particularly like that term. To me, it's like the term anti-Semitic. It really doesn't have any real meaning like it should. Like they call Arabs that don't like Israel anti-Semitic, but Arabs are Semitic people. So that doesn't make any sense, does it? Well, Islamophobia, I mean, guys, people have been hating on Islam since the time of the Prophet. It's not like this idea that people are not going to like our religion just emerged all of a sudden in history, but I'll leave it up to you to decide whether or not that's an important term. But the reason I'm saying this today is because we have a bombardment of propaganda from especially certain religious organizations to try to otherize Islam for American people, so that it seems so far, so distant, so unfamiliar to them that there's no way they can relate to us. So one of the arguments that you'll find them making to their people, and these are usually people who don't interact with Muslims, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a different God than what the Christian or the Jew is worshiping. Well, what I've done here is I took 3 languages. 3 languages. All of these are Semitic languages. They're coming from the Middle East. And I took the Hebrew alphabet and I took the pronunciation of the word God in their languages, and I spelled them in Hebrew. First, we have the Hebrew. They say Elo. Okay, then I put Aramaic, which is the language of Isa alayhi salam. They say Elah. And then finally, in Arabic, we say Allah. Notice something similar. What do all three of these have in common when you write them in Hebrew? Exact same letters. The only difference, the consonants, the vowels. Okay? Like a, e, and u. Okay? So this is kind of like how up north in the United States they call it a ka, and down here in the south we call it a car, right? But we're talking about the same thing. And we notice that Bani Israel and, for example, Yemenis are very far apart from each other, but yet they have a very similar pronunciation for the name of God. So just the pronunciation itself is the same. Aleph, Lamed, Hey. These are the letters. They make up the name of God in all three of those languages. But I think we can do a better job proving that we worship the same God they do. In fact, I think we can put a nail in the coffin tonight, shall we? You guys think we should put a nail in the coffin? You guys know this expression? Like when you put a nail in a coffin, that means that person is going in the ground. He's dead. This is the Bible. This is the Bible translated into Arabic. The Bible translated into Arabic. By who? Arab Christians. So, what do we have here? This is the first verse of the Bible, chapter number 1 of the book of Genesis in the Bible in Arabic. And what does it say? What does it say? فِي الْبَدَئِ خَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Hold on a second. I thought they said we don't worship the same God. Why are they putting Allah here when they're trying to say in the beginning God created? There's no Christian or Jew you'll ever meet that doesn't know this passage. This is like Alif Lam Mim. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. Everyone knows this verse. Every Christian, every Jew knows this because this is their book, the very beginning of it. Yet, when they translate it into Arabic and give it to us to read, the same people who want to say we don't worship the same God will put the name of that God in their book that they want us to read and believe in. But that's the Jewish scriptures. What about the Christian scriptures? This is a very famous line from the Christian Bible. This is what they call the Christianity in a nutshell, John 3:16. And when they translate John 3:16 into Arabic, what does it say? لِأَنَّهُ أَحَكَذَ اللَّهُ أَحَبَّ الْعَالَمِ. For God so loved the world. What are they putting as God in Arabic? Well, you see for yourself. أَحَبَّ اللَّهِ. For God so loved the world. What's interesting about this is you're going to find this in every hotel in America. You know why? You go to any hotel in America, you open up your drawer, your nightstand, and almost 90% of the time you're going to find a Gideon Bible. A Gideon Bible. And in that Gideon Bible, they have translated this verse into like 40 languages. And what's the first language? Because it's in alphabetical order? Arabic. And in those, you'll find the name of the Creator as Allah. So it seems very strange to me for a Christian or a Jew to come to me and tell me that we don't worship the same God, and then at the same time try to peddle me their scripture in the Arabic language that clearly states that we do. What do we say to them? وَلَا تُجَادِلُوا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْهُمْ وَقُولُوا آمَنَّا بِالَّذِي أُنزِلَ إِلَيْنَا وَأُنزِلَ إِلَيْكُمْ وَإِلَٰهُنَا وَإِلَٰهُكُمْ وَاحِدٌ وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ. Okay, our book already is clear about this. Brothers and sisters in Islam, we don't argue with them about this. We say we believe in what is revealed to us, and you and our God and your God are the same. So the first thing is that they know deep down inside Allah is the God that they worship also. And if you're an Arab Christian, this is a no-brainer. But because these poor people here in the United States don't speak the original languages, they don't know Arabic, They don't see these things. So we have to sometimes point them out to them so that they get the idea. So this is very interesting. This is what they call the Shahada in Hebrew. Okay, so Jews, they have a phrase that they say in the morning when they get up and at night when they go to sleep. Okay? And this phrase, if they're about to die, someone will come and ask them to say it. What does that sound like to you? The Shahada, right? So they have something like that, and it says the following: Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, which means, hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. That's what you're supposed to say. Doesn't that sound kind of familiar to you? Well, what's interesting, if I say it to you again, I want you to pay attention to the last word. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad. That's how they say it today. But remember, I told you there's a letter that they mispronounce? Ihad. That's what they're saying. What does that sound like to you? Ahad. Now, what is this? The first verse of Surah Al-Ikhlas. If you look up the tafsir for this and why it was revealed, the Asbab and Nuzul, you're going to find two opinions. The first opinion, the mushrikeen of Mecca, they come to the Prophet ﷺ while he's in Mecca and they say, okay, tell us about Allah. Who is Allah? And then Allah reveals to him, Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Right? Because he's talking to people who worship multiple gods. However, there's another opinion that exists, that this was revealed to him when he came to Medina and the Jews questioned him about Allah. In other words, they wanted to hear, is this man worshiping the God that we worship? What does he have to say? Now, what's interesting is we have something in Arabic called the subject and the predicate, right? The subject and the predicate. What's the subject called in Arabic? The subject. The subject. There's another name. Okay, let's talk about just in terms of the jumla, the sentence. What do you call the beginning of the sentence? Mubtada, and then what's the end? Khabar, right? Okay? So what's interesting here is that according to one famous Muslim scholar, he said that there's actually two khabar here. One of them is Allah, and one of them is Ahad. And he says that Huwa is actually a name. Think about this for a second. When we refer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's usually translated as Huwa, meaning He. But Laysa kamithlihi shay. Allah is not a man, Allah is not a woman. He has no gender, right? Allah is not like a human. So Huwa in Arabic is also a neutral pronoun. It has no gender. But for Allah, it can be considered like a name, Huwa. So what this actually can be interpreted to say, or what the Jews might have heard when he said that to them, is say, the Lord, Huwa, is God, the Lord is one. Exactly what their Shema says. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. Because there's different ways to read this, and they are all correct. The point I'm trying to make is that it's very fascinating, and it's a miracle of our Prophet ﷺ that he came to them, and when they asked him about who is the God he worships, he told them exactly what they know to be true. And then used the same word, ihad and ahad, that they would have known. It's about to get real interesting. Now, some of you have probably heard of this. There's a very famous Muslim debater who passed away, Ahmed Deedat, rahimahullah. I love this man, not because he debated people, but because he was very proud to be Muslim. He was very proud to be Muslim. And he was not scared of anyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he made this thing I'm about to show you very famous, but I don't want to just play you this video tonight. I want us to actually do what he is claiming to see if it's true. And do it in a way where we don't have to rely on Muslims to prove it to us. We're going to let non-Muslims prove to us that the Prophet Muhammad is mentioned in the Bible, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, I warn you ahead of time, if you're one of these people who are very just disgusted by the idea of any kind of music, this video does have some background sounds that I did not put in it, Okay, it's not like rock music or something, but it's something they did to make it more theatrical. So please forgive me ahead of time, but most of the information in here is very important, and I kind of like the way this video was done. What this video is going to show you is it's going to show you a book in the Bible that the Jews and the Christians read from. And in that book, there's a passage where someone is talking about a man. Sulaiman, alayhi salam, is writing about a man, according to our claim. And then he's going to, according to this video, show you where our prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is mentioned in that passage. Okay? So if we could dim the lights a little bit.
They absolutely have no relation to the Prophet Muhammad, nor prophesy his coming. Muhammad is God's true messenger. That's a chapter.
So these are all Christian apologists who are basically saying, like, nah, Muhammad's not a messenger. Wa na'udhu billah.
Lo, we inspire thee as we inspired Noah and the prophets after him, as we inspired Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac and Jacob and the tribes, and Jesus and John and Jonah and Aaron and Solomon, and as we imparted unto David the Psalms.
The verse we've just heard is from chapter 4 of the Quran. In the verse, God is affirming to humanity that Muhammad is indeed the recipient of a divine guidance, just as Noah, Abraham, and the rest of the prophets. However, some Christians and Jews today don't believe that Muhammad was a prophet and the covenant that God made with Abraham. And since the Quran is not their book of authority, in this video I'm going to show you that the book you're holding in your hands contains the name of the seal of prophethood, the Prophet Muhammad. As known, the Old Testament was preserved in the Hebrew language. In the 5th chapter of the Shir HaShirim, which is one of the 5 Megillah or sacred scrolls that are part of the Hebrew Bible, or for short the Song of Solomon, as Christians know it today. That chapter is discussing someone. Jews will say it is discussing Solomon, while Christians will say it is discussing Jesus. Considering this is the Songs of Solomon, it would seem logical that it is discussing Solomon. The verses describing this mystery man have the narrator's speech conjugated in the feminine, meaning it is a woman who is describing this man. So it is possible that it is one of Solomon's wives discussing her husband Solomon. However, Christians assert that Jesus is being discussed, and that the chapter is describing a man who was not yet alive at that point. A prophecy. In reading the English translation of Song of Songs 5:16, it finishes the description by saying, he is altogether lovely, but what most people don't know is that the name of that man was given in the original Megillah. Here is verse 16, and how it is written in ancient Hebrew, before introducing the vowels, in the 8th century, from the Hebrew Bible, on scripturetext.com. Here is the word in question.
Remember those.
This word is made of 4 letters.
Mem, Het, Mem,
word as it is written in its original form, with no vowels. It can be read as Muhammad, which is the name of the Muslim prophet, or as Muhammad with no A after the H. According to Ben Yehuda's Hebrew English Dictionary, it is correctly pronounced as Muhammad, not Muhammad. So how we're going to know for sure if it's pronounced as Muhammad, the Muslim prophet, or as Muhammad, a random Hebrew word? The only way is to give the verse to a rabbi and say to him, please read. Here is the Song of Songs 5:16, and how it is read by a rabbi from a Hebrew Jewish site. Please notice, the im in Hebrew is a plural of respect.
زادني بزرعي بنوت يروشلايم حكوا ممتكين بخلوا محمد 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 دين زادني بزرعي بنوت يروشلايم.
Coming out from the darkness, Irada one of God's God. Muhammad is his messenger. Let the world hear.
حكوا ممتكين بخلوا محمد دين زادني بزرعي بنوت يروشلايم حكوا ممتكين بخلوا محمد 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 دين زادني بزرعي.
Translation tool which includes a professional. Here is the famous SDL translation tool which includes a professional human translation as well as an online translation. We're going to copy our Hebrew word of the Song of Songs directly from the Jewish site. It's the same site where you can hear the rabbi reading the verse in Hebrew. All links are in the description, so we're going to copy the word and paste it and ask, please translate. Are they going to translate the meaning of the name of that person? As the Bible translators did, which is the praised and the lovely one, or are they going to keep the name as it is? Well, see it yourself. Here is the World Lingo Translator. The result is the same. It's Muhammad.
Okay, so let me just break down very briefly what just happened. We decided to go into the original Hebrew scripture of the Song of Solomon and read it in the original language. And we read a passage, and then we took that passage out of Hebrew, we copied it into a translation engine, and we asked the translation engine to move that into the English language. And what did it move it into? It took that phrase and translated it exactly, without any differences, the way you would say Muhammad. Now, remember I asked you to memorize 4 letters. Mem, Het, Dalet, and Gimel. So the 3 that are important for this section, Mem, Het, Dalet. Okay? Now, we're going to see for ourselves if this is true. Okay? We want to make sure that what we just saw in this video is not just Brother Isa coming here to hype everybody up and make you think that Muhammad's in the Bible, but really I'm just playing games with you. No. We're going to prove it to ourselves right now. And this is something you can do at home. We're going to go to that particular passage of the Bible. And we're going to copy it into a translation engine. Google Translate. Is Google Muslim? I'm just checking. Is Google a Muslim? Okay, so he doesn't have any bias when it comes to translating. So what do we have here? Hebrew to English. Hebrew to English. Okay? Now, this is the passage in the Hebrew language. Okay? Now, remember, according to the video, they have translated our prophet's name as a description, which is interesting. Doesn't Muhammad also mean something? Aren't all names descriptions? Isn't Mr. White also a color and a name? Yes. But they've chosen to keep the description and not the name. So it is translated as, his mouth is most sweet, he is altogether lovely, this is my beloved, this is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem. So we're going to take the passage here out of Hebrew, we're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it into the engine ourselves, okay? So just so you know, I'm going to do it in front of you. So this is the passage, this is the word in question. I'm going to copy mem, het, mem, dalet. Copy. Then we're going to go to Google, and we're going to see what Google has to say. What do you say, Google? Is this the name of our prophet? No. Yes, it is. MashaAllah. Mem, het, mem, dalet. Mem, het, not hey, het, mem, dalet. Now, a modern-day Israeli will pronounce this Muhammad. Just letting you know, this is incorrect. Real Hebrew, real rabbis, and you heard them, they pronounce this as a ha, okay? So this is Muhammad. Now, I've heard the arguments that Christians and Jews have made who watched that video, and they say, oh, no. You didn't copy the whole word, okay? Because really the whole word there is not Muhammad, it's Muhammadim. Muhammadim. Notice these last two little things here. Well, what they're not telling you is that this is a function of the Hebrew language when you want to show something has respect. So the name of God in Hebrew is Elo. But you don't just call him God, he's God. So they call him Elohim. This extra im at the end in Hebrew functions as elevating the status of something, making it greater. And names often have this. Don't we have something like that in Arabic? Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin. Right? Why is it Muhammadin and not Muhammadan or Muhammadun? What do they call this in Arabic? Majroor? Right. And it's so interesting, it sounds just like this, doesn't it? And we say it every day in Salat. All the different versions of the Tashahhud all say, Allahumma salli ala, this is why it's Muhammadin, ala Muhammadin. So this is irrelevant. This is irrelevant. And we know what it means in Hebrew. It just means that this name here deserves respect. And just like Muhammad means the praiseworthy, we're not going to translate Muhammad in the Quran as the praiseworthy. We're going to say his name because it's the name of someone. However, it's not wrong to also put the description, but argument we're making here is not only is this the name of our prophet, it's exactly how you would pronounce it even in Arabic. Mem, het, mem, dalet. Now, what's even more interesting, and I don't have time to do it tonight, I apologize, you have a very short gap here between Maghrib and Isha, is that the context of this is even more revealing. If you read the context of this, this is a description of our prophet. If you ever read the Shama'il literature about our prophet, the description of him, you're going to find a few things. Number one, he wasn't dark and he wasn't pasty white, he was in between. Okay? My beloved, what do we call the prophet? Habibullah. My beloved is white and ruddy, white and red, meaning he's neither pasty white or dark. He's the chief among 10,000. Who marched into Mecca with 10,000 followers? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it goes on to say that his head is as most fine gold, his locks are bushy, meaning his hair was neither curly or straight. It was wavy, just like it was described to us from Ali ibn Abi Talib, radiallahu anhu. And then it goes on to say that his hair is black as a raven. Guess what raven is in Hebrew? Araba. Araba. What does that sound like to you? Arab. So his hair is black as an Arab. And we go on and we go on to describe different aspects of the Prophet. But what's so interesting here is that, don't we know that the Prophet ﷺ, he used to brush his teeth all the time? He was very, they said that we tried to count how many times a day he used the siwak, and we lost count. He died, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, using siwak. His mouth is most sweet. He is Muhammad. This is my beloved. This is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem. That's what it should say there. Now it's about to get more interesting, inshallah. Back to our presentation. So I only have time to briefly go over this, and I can't explain a whole lot about it, but there are prophecies about a prophet coming in the Old Testament and the New Testament, the Jewish scriptures and the Christian scriptures. And I want you to look at these prophecies and tell me, does this not sound like our prophet? So this is Allah in the Torah talking to Moosa alayhi salam. He says, I will raise up for them, the children of Israel, a prophet like you from among their brethren. The word in Hebrew there, ach. See? I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell them everything I command him. I myself will call to account anyone who does not listen to my words that the prophet will speak in my name. Do we know of anything that the Prophet ﷺ did not do without saying Bismillah? Almost every chapter of the Quran except Surah At-Tawbah, every time he cut into something, every time he walked into the masjid, every time he left his house, every time he came into his house, is there anything he did not do in Allah's name? And we know that he doesn't speak from his own desires. He said everything is wahi, revelation from Allah. But, and it gives you criteria here to know when someone is not a prophet. But if the prophet who presumes to speak in my name, anything I have not commanded, or the prophet who speaks in the name of another God, we already figured out that it's the same God. He is to be put to death. Now we know why they wanted to kill him. You may say to yourselves, how can we know when a message has not been spoken by the Lord? If what the prophet proclaims in my name, or in the name of the Lord, does not take place or come true, that is a message the Lord has not spoken. Last time I came here last year, what did I do? I showed you a whole bunch of prophecies of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that all came true. All of them. Including, what is it? يَتَطَاوَلُونَ فِي الْبُنْيَانِ. What are they doing in Arabia right now? Competing to build the tallest buildings on earth. And we said there's no way they would even be able to do that had they not discovered oil there, had the Industrial Revolution not happened, and all the things that had to take place in order for that prophecy to become true. It's impossible for them to make it happen. Now, I'm not going to go over the prophecy that's in the New Testament where Isa alayhi salam is talking because we don't have time, but let's suffice to say that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also spoken about by Isa alayhi salam, and we know that in the Quran it says that Isa says there's a messenger coming after me, ba'dismuhu Ahmed. Okay, his name will be Ahmed. Okay, we're getting towards the end. This is the most fascinating thing I ever discovered, and this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I did not come up with. Actually, none of this stuff is my ideas. Okay, these are from my teachers and very wonderful people online who have exposed these things to me. But I tried to put them in a concise presentation. Okay, what is that word down there? Hajj. Hajj, okay? Now, if I wanted to write Hajj in Hebrew, it would be a little bit difficult. For two reasons. Number one, we said there's a letter that Hebrew or Jewish people today mispronounce. What is that? Het. They pronounce this as a kha. But then we also said that Beni Israel were in Egypt for a few hundred years, and so they don't pronounce it as a jim anymore, they pronounce it as a ga. So they would say Hajj as chag. Chag. But if you're a Yemeni Jew, and you pronounce the alphabet as it was originally pronounced, you would say Hajj. Okay? Is Hajj in the Bible? Man, I can't wait to show you this. I'm so excited. Okay, here we go. There's another video too. Now, it just so happens that Hag is a word in Hebrew. And it has 4 meanings. Look at these meanings for a second. To go around in circles, to have a feast, to make a sacrifice, and it means a holy day. Let me repeat that for you. Hag is a word in Hebrew with the same letters. It means to go around in circles, to have a feast, to make a sacrifice, and it means a holy day. Now, is there anything here that we don't do during the Hajj? Does Allah not tell us to make tawaf? Does He not tell us to eat and drink on the days of Tashriq? Does he not tell us to sacrifice? And it's certainly the day of Eid. Now, is this word in the Torah? That's the question. First, let's ask ourselves a question. It seems that the original scriptures would mention something about Mecca, right? Because Moosa comes after Ibrahim, right? Right? Okay? Well, it just so happens that in what Christians and Jews today would call, or what we might call the Zabur, given to Dawood alayhi salam, they call Psalms. And in it, they have a passage where Dawood alayhi salam is speaking. And he says, "Blessed are those who dwell in your house. They are ever praising you. Blessed are those whose strength is in you, who have set their hearts on pilgrimage. As they pass through the valley of Becca, they make it a place of springs. The autumn rains also cover it with pools." Isn't there an ayah in the Quran that calls Mecca Becca? What's the ayah? What's the ayah? It's in Surah Al-Baqarah, I believe. Who knows it? There you go. Okay, so Allah says the first house on earth built for the worship of Him was Becca. So it's interesting that that word would be used in the Quran because it seems as if Allah is trying to draw our attention to something. Well, that word, Becca, also means something in Hebrew. It's a type of shrub that only grows in the Hijaz of the Arabian Peninsula. Now remember, we asked ourselves, is Hajj mentioned in the previous scriptures? So we're going to watch a video. Now this is a video of a rabbi. His name is Avi Lipkin. Avi Lipkin is an interesting guy. He is on this Christian, I'm assuming maybe this is an evangelical Christian television station, and he's written a book. And in that book, he's going to make an argument, a very interesting argument, very, very interesting argument. And one of the things that I have to do before I play this video is we have to remember something. We have to remember the story of Moosa alayhi salam. So Moosa is born and raised in the family of Fir'aun. And then when he's an adult one day, he comes out to his people and he sees one of his fellow Israelites fighting with a what? Egyptian, okay? And so to break up the fight, he takes a swing at the Egyptian, more or less, and kind of hits him too hard and kills him. And then we know the next day a similar event happens and a man comes from across the city and says, "Look, Moosa, you have to leave. The people are coming to get you for killing that man." Where does he go next? Midian. Okay? Midian. Where is Midian? Where is it? It's like if you have Egypt, and then there's the Sinai Peninsula, and then there's the very top of Hijaz, right below Palestine, there's an area that we would call Midian. Okay? This is where the people of who? Shu'aib, right? People of Shu'aib alayhi salam. So, once he gets there, he meets two women at a well who are watering their animals. And at that point, he goes to meet someone. Now, according to some of the Mufassirun, who he goes to meet is actually Prophet Shu'aib. And Prophet Shu'aib is the one who offers him to marry one of his daughters and to do one extra thing, and that's work for him for 8 years or 10 years. And it's his decision to decide how many years he wants to work. So we know Moosa marries the woman, and he stays with Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam for 10 years, according to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, the names are a little bit different, and that's the only thing that's kind of hard to follow about this presentation. Remember that for Jewish and Christian people, Shu'aib is going to be called Jethro. Jethro, that's what they call the man who Moosa went to go stay with. He's called the high priest of Midian, Jethro. And remember, Moosa is Moses, Fir'aun is Pharaoh, okay? And Ismail is Ishmael. So remember, some of the names are pronounced a little bit different. He's not an Arab, so he's not going to say them the way we do. Okay? And I may skip through a few portions of this because there's some scenes that are inserted in here from a movie to try to help, you get the idea, but they're kind of like not important. So we're going to watch what Avi Lipkin has to say about something very interesting. Bismillah.
Before time began, there was the cube. We know not where it comes from.
Can we dim the lights?
Say that it holds the power to create worlds and fill them with life. That is how our race was born. For a time we lived in harmony, but like all great power, some wanted it for good, others for evil. And so began the war. And just when all hope seemed lost, message of a new discovery.
Avi Lipkin is here from Israel, and he's brought his brand new book. It's called Return to Mecca. And the title of this book, Return to Mecca, what could that possibly mean? And on the cover is a picture of a black cube. That's where the story starts. Avi, let's start right there.
Yes. I believe that the Bible is a GPS. I believe that the Bible took place, a lot of it took place in Arabia. Actually, in most churches, Christians say to me, we know that Mount Sinai, the real Mount Sinai, is not in the Sinai Peninsula, but rather in northwest Saudi Arabia. It's called Jebel al-Lawz. I'm the first Jew in the Jewish world who's coming to the rabbis and saying, the Torah is a GPS. Jethro, the high priest of Midian, I believe was the high priest of the Kaaba, the black stone, which is today in Mecca. There was no Mecca, it was just a black stone in those days.
Our father's Jethro, he's Sheik of Midian.
Moses was the son-in-law of Jethro. Moses was the understudy of Jethro for 40 years. And when Moses went to take the children of Israel out of slavery, he gave them the phylacteries, which they are to put on their forehead and on their left arm, as a sign from God that we are leaving the pyramid system of slavery in Egypt, and we're going to the cube system of freedom in Arabia. And it must be remembered that there was no Judaism in those days, there was no Christianity, there was no Islam. All people, including the Israelite slaves, were pagans. And of course, the golden calf, basically the children of Israel reverted to the gods that they had known in Egypt when Moses delayed coming back. So the purpose of this book is to show where exactly we were, and that 38 years, at least, of the Exodus was in Arabia. Moses, Aaron, Jethro were at the Kaaba, which is today Mecca. And when God says in Deuteronomy 11 that the borders of Israel will include the desert to the south, that desert is Arabia. Jethro was a cousin because Jethro was descended from Midian. Midian was one of the brothers of Isaac. So you have Ishmael, son of Hagar, and then you have the children of Keturah. So Midian is one of the children of Keturah. And from Midian you go down to the next generation, which is Reuel or Raguel. And one of the names of Jethro in the Bible is Reuel. So it was probably the Middle East. Many times people are named after grandfathers and great-grandfathers.
We've come far from Egypt, across the desert, on foot. He who has no name surely guided you steps.
Hamoudi.
No name. You Bedouins know the God of Abraham? Abraham is the father of many nations. We are the children of Ishmael, his firstborn. We are the obedient of God. I will dwell in this land.
So Moses, when he had to flee Egypt after he killed the taskmaster who was beating the Jewish slave, the Israelite slave, he knew where he was going. He knew the geography. He was almost Pharaoh, so he had to know the geography. So he took the Israelites through the desert to what is today Nueva, on the eastern shore of the Red Sea of Sinai. That is where they crossed. And by the way, there's no archaeological proof at all of an exodus in the Sinai Peninsula. But there is tons of archaeological proof in the Arabian Peninsula, in the New Testament, chapter 4, verse 25 of Galatians. It says, you know,
and talk about the linkage between the Jews who wear phylacteries and this pilgrimage to Mecca.
By the way, if Christians have ever come to Israel, so I'm talking now to the people who've been to Israel, they've seen it on the flight.
Yes.
When people are still snoozing and the sun comes up as the plane is approaching Israel, you see the Orthodox Jewish men go to the back of the plane with a tray and they put on the phylacteries. And this is a tradition that goes back 3,500 years. By the way, very important, and I learned this in the Jewish Theological Seminary, we studied the New Testament. Matthew 23, verse 5 did. What he was saying was that if you have the $200 phylactery, you got poor. So, but it's something, it's in Matthew 23, verse 5. So we know that the Jewish men in those days wore this. We know that in the Greek Orthodox Christian tradition, there are priests who put on phylacteries. It's a slightly different Greek phylactery, but it all commemorates exactly the same thing. So the phylacteries have a very important meaning for Christians as well.
So my question, and I'll ask it for everybody who's watching, why in the world would you put on, strap a little wooden box with scriptures from Deuteronomy on the inside and attach that to your left arm and to your forehead? Why would you do that, and why would it be cube-shaped?
Perfectly cube-shaped. And so the contention in my book is that when Moses came to Pharaoh, and remember Pharaoh's God. Pharaoh was God in Egypt to the Egyptian people. He created the Nile, and he created this, and he created that. And who's Moses? Moses is a guy who stutters. It's very hard to talk. And God says, give the people a sign. And the phylacteries were the sign. He gave Pharaoh the signs. You remember his rod became a crocodile or serpent, ate the other crocodile or serpent. And the leprosy in the chest. These are all signs. And then later the 10 plagues. And Moses gave signs to the elders of Israel. And Moses gave signs to the people. You're talking about primitive pagan people who were shepherds. And they're saying to Moses, well, why should we listen to you? You know, until God. So this phylactery has 4 pouches, 4 parchments. The first 2 are Exodus 13. Then you have Deuteronomy 6 and Deuteronomy 11. Exodus 13, we are still in Egypt. We are still in slavery. We're about to flee. But Exodus 13 talks about the sign on thy arm and frontlets between thine eyes. And, I know young people won't know the word that I'm going to say now, but there's a word that older people like you and I remember, which is, a lot of the gyroscope. The gyroscope takes us directly in the direction we have to go.
Okay. Now, I'd like to explain to you at this point, simply because I don't want to take too much time away from the Isha prayer, because I was told to stop right now, but I still have just a few minutes to explain something to you. What Avi Lipkin is saying, if you can turn the lights back on, is that if you don't know anything about Judaism, Orthodox Jewish people have a tradition in their religion. It's called phylacteries. They take a black cube and they tie it to their forehead, and then they take another black cube and they put it on their left arm and wrap it 7 times around their arm. Inside of that cube are the following things. Number 1 is that it's a command from God to do as a sign to remember God. Another passage says that the Lord is God, the Lord is Ahad, one. And the other passage says to go into the desert, okay, and perform a holiday. Well, if you read in the earlier part of the book from which these are taken, the first time this is mentioned, it says, go into the desert and make chag. Go into the desert and make chag. So these passages that are inside of their black cubes are something that they're supposed to do to remember God as a sign that says that there's only one God and He's Ahad. and it says to go into the desert, and it's referring to another passage which says go make a hajj. So his argument is that when Moosa alayhi salam went to go stay with Shu'aib, Shu'aib knew about Mecca because he comes after Ibrahim alayhi salam. He's a descendant of Ibrahim. And while he's there, he would have learned about Hajj from Shu'aib or Jethro. And that's when Moses goes back to his people, God tells him to show them this sign, this phylactery sign, and to put these black cubes on them. And to this day, 3 times a day, Jewish people do this. They put these black cubes on themselves and they pray. Now I want to ask you a question. If what he's saying is true, then there should be some pretty obvious signs that it's true. Number one, what's the shape of the thing they put on themselves? A cube. What color is it? Where do they put it? Right between their eyes. Where do they put it? On their left arm. What's the arm that faces the Kaaba when you make tawaf? What's the arm that faces the Kaaba when you make tawaf? Their left arm. How many times do you make tawaf? 7. How many times do they wrap it around their arm? 7 times. It says there's one God. This is a sign for you. Go make Hajj. Now, are there any clues in the Quran that this might be true, what he's saying? I believe there is, and the end of this video is going to show you. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the story of Moosa alayhi salam. And this is the ending. This is the phylacteries. This is the black cube.
And so the first meeting really meant, let my people go so that they could sacrifice to the Lord at the Kaaba in Mecca, which there was no Mecca at the time. And sending the devil to the pits of hell for 1,000 years.
Okay, I'm having a little bit of trouble finding the passage. Okay, so if you guys know the passage, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the story of Moosa alayhi salam and Shu'aib when they're talking to each other, Shu'aib uses a very interesting word for year when he asks Moosa to stay with him for 8 years. He doesn't use the word am. He doesn't use the word sana. He says, stay with me, thamaniya hijaj. Stay with me, thamaniya hijaj. 8 hajj. Why would he use the word hajj? Now today we know the word hajj means a full year, right? Just like it means hajj. But the clue here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is drawing our attention to the fact that the man that the Prophet Moosa alayhi salam met in Midian seemed to know about hajj. That's why he used that word. Stay with me for 8 hajj. So remember, that word hajj is in the Torah. And the Jewish people to this day put the phylacteries on their heads with a passage inside telling them that they should go make hajj. Now, I want to go back to the beginning so that we can see why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might have said, الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ يَعْرِفُونَهُ كَمَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُم. We have proven tonight, using all different kinds of methods, that we, the Muslims, worship the same God that Christians and Jews do. We also found that the name of our Prophet ﷺ is in the previous scriptures. We also found, right, that there are prophecies about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the previous scriptures. And we have definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, seen that the learned rabbis of Medina, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed the Qibla back to Mecca, they should have known better. They should have known better, because 3 times every day they put that black cube on their head that says there's one God and that this is a sign for you. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they know, He means they know that what we're doing is true. Brothers and sisters in Islam, anything good that you heard here tonight is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything wrong or incorrect is my fault. and do not necessarily represent the views of the Islamic Association of Raleigh. I hope that you got some benefit out of this presentation tonight. I hope that you will go home and do a little more research, that you will definitely try to engage with the previous scriptures, especially if you're a person who's has a very good foundation in your Islam, because there are so many signs in the previous scripture, and we just covered some of the bigger ones tonight. Brothers and sisters in Islam, thank you very much. Thank you to Brother Muammar and Muhammad Abu Talib and the Raleigh Association who invited me here tonight. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this from us. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdika wa ashhadu wa la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barak ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.